Hi, readers. How are you? Happy Tuesday. How are you feeling? I'm sorry I wasn't with you yesterday. I wasn't feeling very well. I think it was really allergies are really bad here, but I'm feeling much better today. And sorry I missed you, and I did miss you. So, how you feeling? You been checking in with yourself? I hope so. I have to tell you, I haven't really checked in with myself. And I think right now, well, actually, I just got back from the grocery store, and I have to say, I felt so hopeful. I remember walking down the aisle and I saw toilet paper, and I was like, oh my goodness, things are getting back to normal, and I just had this moment of real feeling of hope and excitement. And I have to say, I do really, as soon as I walked in, I said something to my cousin about it. Like, I felt really hopeful. So, which is really good because I know that we don't know, right? We don't know what's this is like and what's going to happen tomorrow. And so the little glimmers of hope that things are going to get back to somewhat of normalcy. I think things are going to be different, but little glimmers of hope of some things that we know to be true, I think can be really, really awesome, can feel really awesome. So think about how you're feeling. Think about if you're feeling, if you have up feelings or you're feeling down feelings. I'm in the process of sort of revamping this a little bit, but the feelings will be the same. Just want to make it a little bit clearer for you. That's why it feels a little messy. And this week, we're going to talk about reading. So kind of think about your feelings, hold on to your feelings. And we're going to really delve into some amazing reading this week, really looking for some deep work in our books around some ideas. Oftentimes we call those inferences, right, that we get, and interpretations. So I'm going to share with you a short story from one of my favorite books called Every Living Thing by one of my favorite writers ever, Cynthia Rylant. And if you don't know this, you may know this story. But if you don't know it, or you don't know anything about this book, it is a collection of short stories, and they're all about animals. Every living thing, every story has an animal in it. And I feel like this book has meant more to me as I've grown older and hopefully wiser and better. I have become, and also I think through my daughter, because she is such an animal lover, I have become so much more aware of animals than ever before. And I think through this pandemic, I've thought about it a lot. Animals have actually, had their environment back for them. And we're seeing a lot more wildlife out there. And it's kind of exciting when we think about like, where are the silver linings in this, right? So that's kind of cool. So I'm going to share with you this short story, and it's called Boar Out There. So boars, you may know a boar, you may not, but you may not be able to see it very well. But this is a sketch of a boar. And it's really, a boar looks very much like a pig. It's like a wild pig. May have a little bit more hair on it, a little darker maybe. But a boar is a wild pig. Okay. So boar out there, it's about every living thing, right? So one thing that I know about boars is that people are afraid of them. They tend to be scary. They're in the wild. They can be dangerous. And when I think about the title, Every Living Thing, I'm already starting to think about how maybe Cynthia Rylant wants us to pay attention to every living thing. Sometimes some animals have really bad, get a really bad rap and get really bad rep. And it's like, how can we see every living thing as being really important? And so I'm wondering, maybe in this book that I'm in this short story, I'm thinking maybe Cynthia Rylant will show us like how to love boars, kind of like snakes. I saw a black snake out front, And my cousin's husband, who's so about wildlife, it's like, it's no big deal, Christy. It's not poisonous. It's just like a friend, you know. And I'm like, shaking in my boots. So I think Cynthia Ryland is trying to get us to think about every living thing, even the ones that maybe have a bad reputation. Okay, here we go. Everyone in Glen Morgan knew there was a wild boar in the woods over by the Miller farm. The boar was out beyond the splintery rail fence and past the old black Dodge that somehow had ended up in the woods and was missing most of its parts. Jenny would hook her chin over the top rail of the fence, twirl a long green blade of grass in her teeth, and whisper, "Boar out there." So I'm getting some ideas. And remember, you probably want to have something to jot on. I forgot to mention that earlier. But let me reveal some ideas that I'm getting about Jenny. We meet the main character, Jenny. And she seems like, you know, she's sort of in this, like, it almost feels as if she's kind of like in this state of gratefulness. She almost feels curious to me, kind of whispering, "Boar out there." But there's sort of this sort of positive feel about that. She seems calm, you know, and maybe even grateful. Okay, so let's kind of read on and see if we get some more ideas about Jenny. And there were times she was sure she heard him. She imagined him running heavily through the trees, ignoring the sharp thorns and briars that raked his back, and sprang away trembling. She thought he might have a golden horn on his terrible head. The boar would run deep into the woods, then rise up on his rear hoofs, throw his head toward the stars, and cry a long, clear, sure note in the air. The note would glide through the night and spear the heart of the moon. The boar had no fear of the moon, Jenny knew, as she lay in bed listening. So that's an interesting part. Kind of like a little, you know, Jenny's sort of like daydreaming about this boar in her bedroom, right? And kind of like really trying to empathize with him, I feel like, you know. He might have a golden horn to make him feel more special or powerful. But then she says on his terrible head, right? Like, so she knows this boar has this sort of bad reputation, and she's feels like she's actually sort of daydreaming or thinking and dreaming about this boar in sort of a positive way. See if we get some more ideas about Jenny and how she might be feeling. One hot summer day, she went to find the boar. No one in Glen Morgan had ever gone past the old black Dodge and beyond as far as she knew. But the boar was there somewhere between those awful trees, and his dark green eyes waited for someone. Jenny felt it was she. Moving slowly over damp brown leaves, Jenny could sense her ears tingle and fan out as she listened for thick breathing from the trees. She stopped to pick a teaberry leaf to chew, stood a minute, and then went on. So what do you think Jenny's feeling right now? Think she's feeling up or down, high or low? I think many of you guys are probably saying that she is probably doesn't feel high energy. So let's see if you can find like maybe an up feeling, low energy down in the bottom. You think she might be feeling. See if you can jot that down. Okay. She stopped to pick up a teaberry leaf to chew, stood a minute, then went on. See if you can jot down that feeling about Jenny. Deep in the woods, she kept her eyes to the sky. She needed to be reminded that there was a world above and apart from the trees, a world of space and air that didn't linger all about her, didn't press deep into her skin as forest air did. Finally, leaning against a tree to rest, she heard him for the first time. She forgot to breathe, standing there listening to the stampede of hoofs, and she choked and coughed. And now the pounding was horrible, too loud and confusing for Jenny, horrible. She stood stiff with wet eyes and knew she could always pray, but for some reason she didn't. Okay, what is she feeling now? Probably more of a down feeling, but high energy. She sees the boar. Her heart is racing. What must she be feeling? Jot it down. Knew she could always pray, but for some reason didn't. He came through the trees so fast that she had no time to scream or run, and he was there before her. His large gray-black body shivered as he waited for just beyond the shadow of the tree she held for support. His nostrils glistened and his eyes, but astonishingly, he was silent. He shivered and glistened and was absolutely silent. What he must be feeling right now. You know, he's an animal. Animals have feelings. I have a cat. My daughter has a dog. I know that they're feeling. I know when my cat is happy. Oh my God, I miss him so much. He's back in New York. And he's on his back and he's looking at me and wants to be pet. And I know when he is scared and mad, when he's in his carry-on cage. So what must this boar be feeling? He shivered, waiting there. He shivered and was absolutely silent. I wonder if he's feeling fear. You know, they say animals are just afraid of us as we are as them. And the author is saying he shivered and stood still. So I'm thinking he might be afraid because he sees Jenny. Okay, let's keep reading. Let's see. Let's pay attention to those. Jenny's feelings, the boar's feelings. Jenny matched his silence, and her body was rigid, but not her eyes. They traveled along his scarred, bristling back to his thick hind legs. Tears spilling and flooding her face, Jenny stared at the boar's ragged ears caked with blood. Her tears dropped to the leaves, and the only sound between them was his slow breathing. What do you think she's feeling now? Jot it down. Might be a couple of feelings, but there's some strong feelings. And then what makes you think that she feels this way? What are her actions? So jot down your feelings and then maybe her actions that show you what she might be feeling. The only sound between them was his slow breathing. Then the boar snorted and jerked, but Jenny did not move. High in the trees, a blue jay yelled, and suddenly it was over. Jenny stood like a rock as the boar wildly flung his head and in terror bolted past her. Past her. I can almost see it. And now, since that summer, Jenny still hooks her chin over the old rail fence and she still whispers, "Boar out there." But when she leans on the fence, looking into the trees, her eyes are full and she leaves wet patches on the splintery wood. She is sorry for the torn ears of the boar and sorry that he has no golden horn. But mostly, she is sorry that he lives in fear of blue jays and little girls when everyone in Glen Morgan lives in fear of him. That's the end. Let's think about that ending. Jenny hooks her chin. She leans on the fence, whispers, "Boar out there." But her eyes are full, so she must be crying, right? And she notices that he's got torn ears. And then she says he lives in fear because remember earlier the blue jay yelled and as soon as that blue jay yelled, the boar ran off. So he's not only afraid of little girls, but little birds. And Jenny is crying in this end here because of his fear of these things that you would kind of, I'm surprised that he's afraid of birds and little girls, right? Maybe an adult, maybe a hunter who had a gun, but not a little girl or a bird. And I love the ending. When everyone in Glen Morgan lives in fear of him. Chat right now. What do you think that this book is teaching us? Think a little bit about why the ending is the way it is. Think a little bit about why would everyone be afraid of a boar? And see if you can jot, you might even say something like, sometimes in life people blank, instead they blank. Sometimes in life people are afraid of the unknown, instead they should. So writers will come back to bore out there as we progress through the week. Tomorrow's lesson and the next day we'll continue to look inside this text to really think about the layers and the meaning inside it. Have a great rest of your day. Bring your notes with you tomorrow and the next day. Those will help us when we think a little bit about how we can take some strategies and use those in our own books. But we will come back to bore out there and do a little teaching inside of it. Have a fabulous rest of your day.